I've ever had. I got a piece of advice a while back from a friend that said, imagine the people that you're around having a sign around their neck that said, "I want to feel appreciated." So I've thought of that from time to time. I can't resist after Melody said some of those things. We keep it pretty real, so I just can't resist sharing maybe a couple of thoughts. Is that for me? Put this on. Oh, yeah, thank you. Wow, that's wonderful. So maybe, I wouldn't normally have public criticism, but maybe one piece of public criticism. When you're going to show a picture of a Samoa,
You gotta have some.
and you're going to talk about Samoas for 3 minutes, bring them. A little bit of criticism.
You know I'm not bringing Samoas.
I also can't, again, I don't know how to eat. I'm going to go back to 9 years and 10 months ago. I was in Orlando, Florida with my wife and one of our children. We have 6 now. One on Mother's Day, one on Father's Day, one on Labor Day, one on 10, 11, 12. How do you beat all that? One on Super Bowl Sunday. But I had one at the time. I was in Orlando, and I had to fly to Dallas for 3 hours, fly back to Orlando, and then my wife and I would finish our vacation. When I was in Orlando, about 5 minutes before my time came to address a group of 60 people, I started to feel just a little sick in the stomach. I thought, well, good thing my talk's only about 30 minutes. So I got up there and I started about 3 minutes into this talk. They're all sitting there and I realized, this is worse than I thought it was. This could be bad. Dr. Marty Nalda out of Sarasota, Florida, she looks at me and she says, "Vince, you look green." And I thought, yeah. And about 10 seconds later, I realized I was not going to be keeping lunch down. And they're just staring at me, about twice as many people as you see here. And I ran out into the bathroom, and I just lost it. And my wife will tell you, the whole hotel will hear it when I throw up. Well, that next 3 or 4 hours, I sat in the hotel room. I rented a room, just went and laid down on the floor. I mustered up the strength to pick up the phone, call Melody, and say, "I don't know what happened, but what should I do?" And she said, "Well, stop eating so much food at Golden Corral." It looked like that happened. What do I do now that I'm sick? And I remember even then, almost 10 years ago, well, this, electrolytes, and just rattling off all these things. And so I finally got back to my wife then early the next morning. When I hadn't stayed the night there, left at 5 the next morning, and got feeling better. I really did. And I told my wife, well, yeah, it was fortunately only lasted about 6-7 hours. And well, what did you do? Well, I called Melody, and she told me to do this, and this, and it was like, all these things that I certainly wouldn't think of. And she said, "Well, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you, your wife?" And I said, "Well, because you would have said you just have a, low pain threshold. Just tough it out." So at least Melody tells me, we go, how do I get better? I want to talk about influence. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Let's start by talking about the people in your lives. I want to make this participatory. I want you to think about someone in your life that if they were to call you and spend 30 seconds on the phone, they would have power over you to influence you to take some action, maybe against your own intuition. But because they have so much influence over you, you would do it. Now, why do they have the influence? Who is it? Share with me. Who comes to mind? Jeff, who do you have? Who has influence over you?
I'd say my brother Todd.
Okay. Why?
I don't know. He's always had influence somehow since I was young. Somehow he's always been able to. I don't know if he intimidates me. I don't know.
Okay.
He helped raise me. I don't really know.
So it might be intimidation.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to start with intimidation right here. Okay. Let's talk about intimidation. There are 5 levels of leadership. Now, there may be several layers of influence with your brother, but one of them is the position. In other words, I am in this person's upline. This is how we do things on my team, and therefore you do it or you're going to get blackballed. You're not going to be on the team. And it's a position of fear or a position of force. Now, there are 2 opposites in this realm of seeking to have people follow. See, the best leaders have people follow them, right? You've heard Jesus, "Come follow me." Now, you can take an amoeba and you can use a marker to push that amoeba along. Or you can use a sugar cube, and the amoeba doesn't have to be forced. So there is force and coercion, and there is persuasion and influence. Those are the two different ways that we can lead. And some people, when they get a position, they use intimidation, which is force. Now you can always tell when someone's leading by intimidation, because what happens is, when it's time to leave, you are out of there. In fact, 5 minutes before it's time to leave, you're probably going to use the restroom, wrap up what you can, because you don't want to be there a minute longer than you have to. And you're just going to do what has to be done just to maintain that relationship. Sandra, talk about someone who's of influence in your life.
My husband?
Okay? Why?
Respect.
Okay.
Love, respect.
I'm going to hold off on expounding on that because that is the pinnacle. We talk about, as we deal with people that we lead, being liked and being respected. And usually the rule that you've heard is, it's more important to be respected than liked. You've probably heard that, right? The reality is, likability is the second level of leadership or influence. In other words, we're not going to get to this point until we're likable. So I've got this position of not intimidation necessarily, but of position. Okay, sometimes with position, when I'm leading just by virtue of having or holding a position, being in someone's upline, I might use intimidation. But as I start to climb the ladder of influence and persuasion, I move to the next level, which is likability. People like me. They enjoy being around me. Now that's not near as powerful when it comes to influencing others as having earned their respect, which again I'm going to talk to more once we fill in the blanks. There's a few more in there. Think about some other people. Maybe people that were leaders that you worked for, your bosses, that you were around in other capacity. Who was it?
Well, I'd say good characteristic would be someone that lives by it and doesn't just talk it.
Okay, so that is here in the respect. When we get to the pinnacle, they live it. They don't just talk about it, but they live it. Yeah.
Church leaders, because they're really inspirational.
Okay, so they inspire. I'm gonna fill in a blank here, and it's real close. And that is mentor. And then I'm gonna actually fill in the third blank. And that is productivity. So let's talk about levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So once we've become likable, they enjoy being around me. If we were going to go to dinner after the meeting, they would want to go. That's not enough to get somebody to follow me to the deepest abyss, to do things that I might be well outside my comfort zone. But we move up into, I see that person in my upline, now that's you, right? I see that person is productive. They get results, they sign people up, the people that they sign up are effective. They get people out when they hold a meeting, people show up. They're having events, they are productive. Their personal level of production is high. Now, let me point out, I'm going to draw an X and a Y axis here. Now I know that's not real big, but can you see it okay? Okay. Think of the X-axis as your work level. How many hours you're willing to expend working. And let's just imagine, to take a mental shortcut, that every level of production that we can fill up on this chart is equivalent to $10,000 of oil sales in a month. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, you are working hard. You're out on a Saturday, you're working, you're calling people, and you are at a 9 out of 10. Yeah, you could probably work a little bit harder. I mean, you don't get up at 6 in the morning, but you get up at 7:30, you stop at 6, you could eat during dinner, but you're working pretty hard. That is 9 units of production. Now that means $90,000 is coming in as a result of you working extremely hard, at let's say 90% of capacity. The reason we talk about influence when it comes to the type of business that you're in is the level of production goes up exponentially. You see, because the y-axis is influence, your ability to influence others. Watch what happens. Most people naturally, their natural talents, natural proclivity is to just do their work, to just put their head down and be productive themselves, not to be stewards and mentors over others. Well, what happens when you become a mentor and have power to attract others? Then let's just say we can get to an 8 on the leadership on the y-axis and we maintain the 9. Or let's actually say that we decide we want to work 10% less. But I'm working smarter, so I'm going to become a leader. I'm going to build a pipeline. You can't build a pipeline unless you're a leader because you need people helping you. I've now added all these units of production. And now I have 8 units of production times 8 units of production. That's 64. Now that's 640,000 instead of the 90,000 I was working. I'm working 10% less. But my efforts are 800% more powerful. See that? And that's the power of leadership. That's what happens when we take the characteristics of influence and persuasion and invest them and integrate them into your business, into the people that are around you that depend on you. So let's talk about how we then get to, from this level here up to this 8, 9, 10 level in leadership. Well, we have the position. As soon as we sign somebody up, they're under us. Of course, we can work on likability, being more kind, paying compliments, paying attention to others. As Stephen Covey says, one of my favorites, seeking first to understand and be understood. All these things that we can do to be likable. Certainly productivity. As we are effective with our own efforts, it is far more likely for me to convince 20 builders on my team, this is how you can run a successful medicine cabinet makeover. This is how you can run a successful event for this. This is how you can sign this type of client up, and this is how you can approach your warm market. So they see this productivity and say, I want to follow that person because they do it. They know how to do it. It's very difficult to follow somebody who is not doing it themselves. Now why? Why is that? Why am I not going to want to follow somebody who's not successful in that realm themselves? Why?
You wouldn't become successful.
Because you wouldn't become successful. You see, you're not going to be a 3 on this chart and attract a 6. Melody's not going to attract Dr. Axe unless she brings it. Unless she's a 9 or a 10 here, she's not going to attract a Dr. Axe. Or some of the other leaders that I happen to have known for a long, long time. So as we say, boy, I want to attract some builders. I want some leaders on my team. Well, step 1, I'm going to increase my ability to influence others. That's leadership. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay, I'm productive. I am actively signing people up. I have learned to master some of these skills that are rudimentary in this business. Now, we move to a point that I believe is the biggest step. As I look at day to day, when I'm consulting my clients, the step that is probably the least inborn in us, the skill that needs to most be nurtured and practiced and refined proactively, that takes a great deal of emotional intelligence, of emotional fortitude, of a lot of resilience, is mentoring those around us. See, now think about the leaders. Think about the people that have really been able to influence you. In my life, I think of Carl Pope and Joe Leckie. Now why? Because those two people brought me along and they showed me how to do it. They were highly productive. I loved being around them. But I watched them in the realm of leadership and saw that when they put their hand to something, they got incredible results. And I said, that's exactly what I want to do. But what's more is they didn't just show me, they then said, now I'm going to show you, and I want to watch you do it. Here's what you do, A, B, C, and D. And you just saw me do it, and so they performed, they demonstrated it, and then they allow me to do it and say, well, that's good. A couple of things that I want you to improve on. A couple of things that you did fantastic. Make sure this is a strength for you. You were born with this ability to do this. These are some things that I think are going to help you tremendously. And then I try it again and they say, oh, so much better. Didn't that feel great? And I started to realize that they were refining my skills in certain areas. And I would follow Carl Pope and Joe Leckie to the deepest abyss. I would follow them anywhere. Now they've mentored me. I feel like I can do it. You had mentioned they live it. The people that have the most influence in our lives, and if you want to have influence over the lives of others, then you are living the very things that you're teaching. Now, I wish it were just that simple. That's actually the easier realm or the easier dimension when it comes to respect. But there are also some fundamental people skills which without, if these don't exist, even if we are living them, we don't have the transparency for people to see it. Okay? So, I'm living, I'm doing all the things, I'm successful, I'm productive, but I'm not transparent, I'm not letting people see it, or what's worse is, what is the most important thing? It's not, friends and money equals fun, but what was the most important thing in all aspects of our lives? The relationships. I get into this habit where, okay, I just heard this great, long treatise and read all these papers and I read all the leadership books, but I'm still in this routine of treating those around me like a robot. I'm so left brain programmed that everything I'm doing is, okay, here are the systems. Here, it's just a recipe. It's just like making cookies. If you follow this recipe, it'll come out this way every time. And then we don't have the emotional intelligence to have social awareness to say, how did the person that I'm trying to mentor perceive my instructions? I went to the eye doctor 2 days ago. It's always funny when you come into a store with 6 kids because they always say the same thing. Everywhere I go, they say, oh, I don't know how you do it. I have 2 kids and they drive me crazy. And I have clients that I consult have 6 employees and they say I have 6 employees and it drives me, I can't do it. And sometimes I can't refrain from saying, well, I have about 107 employees right now. In 2 months, I'll have 180 employees on my payroll. And it can be done, I assure you. It's not insane, it's not chaos, except for at bedtime for 20 minutes. But aside from that, it can be done. It's influence. But there was a remarkable study done. I think it came out of Franklin Covey camp, of the highly, highly successful people. Not the successful people that are in the top 1%, but I'm talking the outliers that are not 3 or 4 times higher in income and production and influence, but 50 or 100 or 200 times higher. This gets back to this law here, is you take an employee at Costco. Costco is actually the one example that doesn't work. You take almost any other employee, any other company. I'm going to go back to Costco in a minute, and I'll tell you why it doesn't work. Almost any company, ExxonMobil, McDonald's, Pfizer, you just name a big Fortune 500 company, and your store manager is going to make 80, 100 grand a year. Well, how much does the CEO make? Millions upon millions upon millions, right? Now, Costco came to mind because they're the one company where the CEO says, I just can't imagine that disparity. And so the CEO of Costco chooses to make $300,000 a year when he's actually the market would pay him probably 10 or 20 million a year. But why is it then that the store manager at Walmart making $80,000 a year and his CEO makes 100 times that amount of money, if not 300 or 400 times that amount of money? And it's this law here. It's the store manager somewhere in this realm and the CEO somewhere in this realm. And the idea is that those that are extremely successful, highly successful in their careers, have a high level of social awareness and a high level of self-awareness. How many of you here have taken the DISC profile, personality profile? I love looking at those. If you haven't done that, I would do that. But the idea is, when you look, because obviously getting from here to here starts by introspection. It starts with meditating and understanding really, who am I, what am I capable of doing, how will I do that? Creating that vision spiritually before it's actually created in the physical world. I don't know of anything that really is created physically before it's created spiritually, or in our minds, you might even say. Well, having a high level of social awareness, meaning I realize how the people around me are perceiving the business. I realize that they perceive it this way. They perceive that this is an opportunity, but these are the things that they have come over 30 or 40 or 50 or 70 years. These are the things that they have come to accept about the laws of the universe, some of which are not true. But gravity exists whether or not you believe it's true. You step off a building, it exists. So there are these certain laws of reciprocation and laws of attraction and all these other laws that exist, whether or not we're aware of them. As we increase in awareness of how others perceive false perceptions and so forth, it's very difficult to then start to work with them, to mentor them, to earn their trust to where they realize my leader understands me. They understand where I'm coming from. They get it. They know what I'm talking about. When I say, my husband doesn't want me doing those classes in my house, they get it. They know why. They understand the chemistry. I'm afraid to call these doctors because I've always come to them in this position, and so I'm afraid that they're going to think of me this way. And then the leader is able to, big word, empathize. Now, let's talk about empathize for a minute. My last name, Covino. Co means with, vino means wine. So, I told my wife she was going to marry Vince with wine. She wanted to keep her last name. She wanted me to be Vince Whiting. Let's talk about the etymology of compassion. It's very closely tied to empathy. You see, you look at Hitler and George Washington, and if they had taken DISC profiles, I'm convinced that they would have looked the same. High D, high red personality like Melody. The difference between Hitler and Washington, and you guys may be saying, yeah, she's more like Hitler than Washington, one or the other, I don't know. I maintain that she's more like Washington. Let me explain the difference between the two. You see, George Washington had a different set of values. Do you think Hitler ever knelt down in a battle where his soldiers were killed and prayed to the Almighty God on behalf of his soldiers? No. Washington had compassion. He knew that these people had families. He knew they loved freedom. He knew that they were after the spirit of liberty. They were willing to die for the country. So that's why we declared our independence, that feeling, that spirit that they had. So as we seek to have respect, as we seek to have the top level of leadership and climb this chart, climb the y-axis, which is where the paycheck climbs. That's where your business climbs. That's where your influence extends like this. And all of a sudden you pick up all this space. Then we increase our social and our self-awareness by looking really hard and being really honest with ourselves about things that are a little bit uncomfortable. As we do that, we start to increase resilience. We start to not take things personally. One of the great books that I absolutely love that one of my mentors, Dr. Mark Gottlieb, one of my favorite people on the planet, he always talks about the 4 agreements, a wonderful book. And one of those things is don't take things personally. Well, imagine if you really had crystal clear awareness of yourself and your true identity, and of the identity and the true worth and the true perspective as best as is possible, through discernment and through understanding and through empathy and compassion, then you're not going to take things personally. Sometimes rifts are created between team members. Sometimes someone on your team that you're seeking to help, that you're seeking to mentor, they're offended. Sometimes you might become offended. Well, generally, in my experience, the best way to remove that feeling of this rift, this being offended, is remove the ability to be offendable. In other words, the ability to recognize, increasing your ability to say, you know what, I'm not going to take that personally. I understand where she's coming from, and well, you know what, I actually probably said that in a way, and I probably could have said that differently. So again, we go back to Stephen Covey, seek first to understand.
What's the name of that book?
Well, I just jumped around from a few books, but the book about not taking things personally, it was one of the 4 agreements that he has, and it's called The 4 Agreements. Clever name.
It was written by Michael Ruiz.
That's right. Yeah, Michael Ruiz. And really, I've listened to it on audio and I've read it. Just a wonderful book. Thank you for that.
The world should live by that.
That's right. Yeah, well, and one of the others, be impeccable in your word. Always do your best. Don't take anything personally. So as we think about you as a leader expanding in your influence, most important thing to remember, your downline are not robots. They are people with their own life experiences. And you have the ability to do what that eye doctor who has one child that she can't handle, and her assistant who both of them said the same thing. I went to the doctor, 6, I don't know how you do it. I got 1, I can't handle it. And the other one, 2 kids, she set me up with my glasses. She said, 2 kids, I can't handle it. I hear that every day, everywhere I go. My wife and I just laugh and say, it's luck of the draw, I guess, because we do all right with the 6. One of the benefits of beating your kids, I guess. But you have the ability as a leader to take glasses, go to your people on your team and put those glasses on them. And they see the world in an entirely different way. See, that doctor 2 days ago, she put went through all the lenses. Was 1 better or 2 better? 2. And I would go back and forth, and after about 20 minutes of that, she said, here's with glasses, here's without. It's a lot clearer focus, isn't it? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, I would suggest that you get this lens. It's progressive and it does this, meaning you can see things from far away and you can see things close. And I thought, I want to be bifocal. I want to be able to see things afar off. I want to have eyes that can see nearby. I want to be able to focus on my family, my needs, my own personal needs. I want to be able to focus on the needs of those around me. I want to be able to see inside the people around me on my team. I want to be able to see them for who they are, build them up. I want to be able to understand them so I can have compassion on them, so that I can empathize with them. Now when I have that, I can help them. Thanks.